So the first time when I'm pronouncing somebody's dead, it sounds pretty straightforward. You look, okay, they're dead, so let's write a note. But I never done it, and they didn't have any classes. So it was in the middle of this busy night, and all of a sudden, I'm getting this nurse calling me saying, "You've got to get up here and pronounce, the death on this person, so they can take her." And I was like, if I looked at my chief resident, well, what do I do? So I'll just do some neurologic tests and write the note. Get back down here. We got 2 more people to admit. We're in the ER. So by the time I got up there, and I listened to her heart. There's no heart rate. There's no lungs, there's no breathing, like a shine of light in her eyes, so I think she really is. I'm actually a second-year resident. I never had to do it before. Usually the chiefs do it, or somebody more senior just goes and takes care of it quickly. But they didn't have a class in med school like how to do this, or at least I missed that day, I guess. And but I went to close her eyes, thinking that looked really nice, like in the movies when you.
That's what they do in the movies.
Right. I'm going to shut her eyes and say, So I do that, and her eyes just pop back open, like rigor mortis set in. So I tried it again. It's like, okay, that's not working.
Hi, I'm Chris Waddell. Welcome to Living It, the podcast where we join experts in the experience of being human. Be bold. Say yes to adventure. Say yes to living it. Welcome to Chris Waddell Living It, the show where we talk to experts in the experience of being human. John Lawrence is joining us today, one of my best friends, who most assuredly is an expert in the experience of being human, a former doctor, an author, an actor, a movie maker, a script writer. What else do we have? An athlete, a dad.
An imposter. I mean, you name all these things, and it's one of the things that we talk about a lot.
Do we have to get into the imposter syndrome right from the beginning?
No. Let's talk about good things. Let's talk about you.
Well, also, this we have to put up is the second in the trilogy of John's books that go from going into medical school to this is residency, right?
Residency,
and then to actually
chief residency and starting into a doctor, and we'll see if the trilogy expands. I was thinking more of we might talk about I had the idea of talking about maybe doing a book for youth or even adults, just talking about the human body, but with my voice. We'll see. Also excited to get back to script writing, but yeah.
Which is going to be interesting because we're going to have to get back to the idea of you were a doctor, and while you were a doctor, you started writing your first script and have subsequently left medicine for writing, acting, and filmmaking. But I want to actually get back to this. So the first one, which I've read, which is called Playing Doctor. This one is also called Playing Doctor.
Yeah.
This is just the second in the line of it. But how did that come about? I mean,
so well, you were there for we'd be laughing, talking stories that happened on rounds, and so the book came about. I was in residency in med school, and this is pre-blog days, pre-vlog. They didn't really exist, but email had come out right after electricity back in the day, and we dating ourselves. And so I would just send messages out. I'd be in the hospital confused as usual, and send an email blast out just about the crazy things that were happening at 3 a.m. And a bunch of friends kept them. I think a lot of friends thought I was breaking into the pharmacy because they were just 3 a.m. stream of consciousness, probably not the most succinct messages. And eventually a friend said, can I publish a few of these? And I just flippantly said, no, I'll just write the whole thing. And so I sat down and just typed out this massive tome, this huge volume of 700 pages.
It's like Jack Kerouac.
Something just,
this is your one ream of paper, right? The
right.
Legend of Jack Kerouac Beyond the Road. Right?
Exactly, just this huge, thing. And then sent it out, didn't really, edited it. I'd send you a chapter every once in a while. And this is probably going back over 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And I did send it to a few, I sent it to some agents at one point, a couple. I remember trying to type a query letter, and then a few of them wrote back and wanted to see some samples, and those got rejected, and so I tossed that away. So this is obviously junk, and but I always kept working on it, and eventually I had a TV project I've been really excited about. I thought it was going to get done, and then it didn't. The guy I was working on it with suddenly said, "No, I've got some advice not to do this. We don't want to do period pieces. Don't work." I was like, what do you mean they don't work? They're huge, they're great. But, and then I thought, I really want to get something done. I needed something done, something that I could finish. And obviously with TV or film, you have no idea if anybody's, well, it's probably not going to pick up my stuff, but even for me to get something off the ground and raise the funds and get it filmed, I thought, well, I've got this book. And so I kind of took that big book, split it into several volumes, and just took another few years to edit. I got some editors, and so self-published it. Figured, can't stop me now. I can put it up there myself. Nobody will read it, but.
What was this like to be able to go back to those emails, right? You wrote these emails at 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. You're averaging what, 2, 3, 4 hours of sleep a night.
Yeah, not the healthiest lifestyle when you're supposed to be promoting health. But.
And you sit down and just bang out these emails about the funny things that have happened to you. And incidentally, the first book is on Amazon's bestseller list as well, right?
Yes, in a small niche. It's number one in a small niche right now. We've had a good week. We had a little splurge in books. I think
a spike.
Yeah, we sold like 500 books this week. So, wow. Yeah, not bad.
Not bad. That's great.
So that's been surprising and fun.
But what was it like to go back and look at those emails? Because you had all these crazy times, and your friends probably who are on this email chain were looking at it going, did this really happen? You know, some of the crazy things that happened to you.
Yeah, that was.
I mean, even the second book, right? I mean, this is.
Yeah, second. The third. I just got back from the editor, so that'll be coming out next summer. I guess I was lucky I did the emails, because there's no way I could have remembered years later, the detail and the stories. And I also used to take notes. I'd be listening to my patients, and they would say just the most hilarious things, so irreverent or just naughty or something so funny. And I'd be looking like I'm paying attention to them talking about their ailments, and I'd be writing down. Then she said, this. So I had shoe boxes filled with notes and scraps of paper I'd written things down on, and just random stories I'd quickly taken notes. So I took all those, and that went into the first version of the book, and then which was good. But as you know, writing is rewriting. So it's just a rewrite. And after you've rewritten each chapter 20 times, and then you find your voice and you're tweaking it and trying to smooth it out and reading it out loud and trying to find that my voice came through more conversationally. But it was a good thing I kept the notes. Otherwise,
it's a great thing, because I mean, I remember reading some of these things, and some of these things were not in the first book, but I'm assuming are in the second book. Like the first time you had to pronounce somebody dead, right?
That's in books. Yes, you'll get to. You remembered that, yeah. Here we are laughing about it.
It's not a laughing matter, but it is a laughing matter as well. I mean, just
well, yeah. So so the first time when I pronouncing somebody dead, it sounds pretty straightforward. You look, okay, they're dead, so let's write a note. But I never done it, and they didn't have any classes. So it was in the middle of this busy night, and all of a sudden I'm getting this nurse calling me saying, "You've got to get up here and pronounce, the death on this person, so they can take her." And I was like, if I looked at my chief resident, oh, what do I do? So I'll just do some neurologic tests and write the note and get back down here. We got 2 more people to admit, we're in the ER. So by the time I got up there to see her, I walked in, and she was, this older woman was dead, and the person I assumed was her daughter was there. So I gave her condolences. I walked over, and she said, "Can you put these like retainer in?"
Like denture, right?
Denture things. I don't know. I have this. I don't know why I have this it's repulsion to them. I don't know. Ever since I was little, they just scare me. I don't like them. They look. So it's just weird. So I said, no, I made this whole thing up. I said, sorry, that's something they do at the funeral home. I don't want to I should let them do that properly. And it sounded like a good excuse to me. So I walked over, and I listened to her heart. There's no heart rate. There's no lungs. There's no breathing. A shine of light in her eyes. So I think she really is dead. And I'm going to do this really nice movie gesture.
And you're still young. I mean, where is this in your career that you find that you have to
Well, the first time I'm actually a second-year resident. I never had to do it before. Usually the chiefs do it, or somebody more senior just goes and takes care of it quickly. But they didn't have a class in med school how to do this, or at least I missed that day, I guess. And but I went to close her eyes, thinking that looked really nice, like in the movies when you.
That's what they do in the movies.
Right. I'm going to shut her eyes and say, as you pass on. So I do that, and her eyes just pop back open, like rigor mortis set in. So I tried it again. I'm like, okay, that's not working. I'll just, and I turn around to walk out, going, that didn't go as I expected. This woman's husband there is a very stately gentleman, and I say my condolences, and he says, thank you very much, and here, can you put this retainer in? And he's like gripping my hand really tightly. So I'm like, apparently I will. So I turn around, and I've never touched a retainer. I don't know how to put them in. I don't know if there's a trick, I don't know what to do. And so I just try to shove them in, except rigor mortis is set in. So her jaw is just locked. and I'm trying to shove it. I'm looking back, like trying to shove it harder. It just
How
keeps
soon
popping
does
out.
rigor mortis set in?
Well, apparently in the time it took me to get from the ER up to,
Okay, so like
that's how long it
an
took.
hour or something?
I think around an hour. I mean,
Okay.
they'd called me. There was one of these nights we were just running in circles, and so I lost track of time, and it's like, all right, get up here, and eventually, that will go away, but there's a time period where it does stiffen up. So I just keep trying to shove it in harder. It keeps like jutting out. I'm going to break her jaw. Like I'm trying to crack it in deeper and shove it in, like, good, stay in it. It keeps popping out. So finally, it's like a spring-loaded thing that's going to send out. Like I just quickly shoved it in as hard as I could, walked out, and I could kind of waiting for it to like fly in the air, and I overheard the husband like, it's okay, honey, I'm sure they can do it properly at the funeral home. It's like, well, that's what I said initially. Should have been done that way, but yeah. So that made it into book 2. So and you can skip that chapter now.
Is that a sense of failure as a doctor?
Well, at that point, there wasn't much more. There wasn't much more I could do wrong at that point. I wasn't making it worse, so it really was one of these. In my mind, I'm going, this is comedic. If it wasn't so frustrating that I couldn't get the thing in, and at the same time, you're just saying, I've got so many more patients to see right now. It's 2 a.m. I'm way behind, and yeah. So there wasn't. I didn't spend a lot of time beating myself up over that one.
So you became a doctor. I mean, the thing is, you
did.
went to
I don't know how they
you went
let
to
me.
college, but you weren't.
I went to
pre-med.
college. Did not know. That's the one thing I told my advisor. I said they said, what do you want to be? I said, I don't know, but the one thing I don't want to be is a doctor. And that was it's one of these things I've learned in life, like never say what you don't want to do, right? So that apparently manifested me becoming a doctor somehow. That was in book 1, because there was a little like some twists of how I then had to go back and do all my pre-med stuff later, and why I decided to actually go into medicine. So went to med school, yeah.
Went to med school, but you'd been a river guide. You were living in Chamonix. You had a fairly decent life.
I was having a good time
before you went to med school.
Went really far into debt. That was we were guiding skiers in Chamonix, and then was with my close friend from here, Scott, and then was running rivers. I met when we were in Chamonix, one of these guys from Moab came out who Scott knew, and he said, well, if you want to guide rivers when you get back to the States, you should come work for me. I said, that sounds like a great plan. So didn't have a lot of other plans going on at the time. I'd been working in law firms, kind of interning and stuff, and had applied to law school. Did much better on the LSATs than the MCATs, the medical boards. So maybe that was the wrong direction. But I ended up...
but then you started writing a script when you started residency, right? Is this how this worked? The timeline?
I've been trying to write. I always loved the idea of writing movies. Yeah, that was one of those things that just writing was something to me that just felt authentic. I don't think that's a trendy word, but it just... I'm not very good at speaking, as you can sometimes
Oh no, you're
tell.
spectacular.
But no, you're a terrible slouch. But when I wrote, it just felt like a more true voice came out. Like I could just find it, and I just movies
From the time you were little, is that the way it worked? Or?
Creative writing. I hated writing. Well, who enjoyed writing book reports or other types of papers
right.
like that? But I can distinctly remember, even in elementary school, writing more creative stories, and like the whole class would like, John, get up, John, we want, I'd tell these ones that were just really just over the top, silly and funny, and I'd tell it was called the Mud Monster series. But then even in high school, one of my teachers, when he finally had us do a creative project, he wrote back, he's like, where did this come from? I didn't even know you could write. I really think he just thought it was, it was an AP class, so he knew I could write, but I apparently didn't put much effort in because I didn't get very good grades. Until then, and he saw this creative writing piece, like that just stuck out. So I always loved doing that. And then,
had you entertained any thoughts of where that might go, like as a kid? Or
No, I really did. I mean,
dreams.
I think
of
we thought like
movies
you had to become like a lawyer or a doctor, and you had to be serious. And my dad was always one of these people who's like, there's avocations and there's vocations. And to this day, I don't remember which is which. I think it was like this block I put on. Like, no, it isn't. Like, you can do things you like in life, but I really didn't think the idea of movies. Going to see great movies or going to see a play even, like as a kid, it just hit me. It just affected me. And I've told you before, my wife will, our kids are born and you didn't cry once. I watch a sports movie and I'm in tears, just blubbering, like it's just one of those, films get me. Maybe it's a safe place to be emotional, I guess. But
Or they do it really well.
Or maybe they do it well. Yeah, you didn't deliver the kids well enough, honey. That was, take that out. We're editing it out. That's all.
That I didn't say to, yeah.
She knows I'm kidding on that. So I love the idea of writing film. I didn't know how, but I definitely thought you had to be somebody special. You know, you couldn't just, I mean, one, I didn't think I had anything to say to write in a novel. You know, so I felt like you're supposed to write about really, you know, traumatic, terrible events or really important issues, or write beautifully. And I didn't think I could, I just didn't give myself credit that I could do that. And when it came to film writing, I really thought, or making films, you had to be touched by angel dust, born into a Hollywood family. And how would you ever get into that? I just didn't get, again, I did some acting in college and loved it. And so that was, but I never thought, oh, I'll move to Hollywood and give myself didn't have the courage. I really don't think I gave myself I guess courage is a good word. I mean, take some courage to go and follow your dream and go, hey, I'm going to fall flat on my face, but I'm going to keep doing it. And eventually,
which is that's a difficult path though too, right? So if you become a doctor, there's a logical path to becoming a doctor.
Which was really upsetting to me. It was almost like angst to me. I mean, maybe like, you know what it's like. Like, it's really fun to stand on the edge of the cliff when you're skiing and go, okay, you know, this is the fun part. Like, you know, all your training comes to being. And I remember, like, just distinctly, like, I got into med school and I was walking through the grocery store here in town late at night, and I was thinking, man, I know what I'm going to do now for the next 8 years. It was so spelled out. It was almost like a bummer. It was kind of like, shoot. I mean, which is, you know, just that idea of, and it maybe, I'm sure that speaks on some other psychological level, but yeah, it's, you know, medicine is a meritocracy. It's, you know, you work hard, you know, you're going to do well. You'll get into where you want to go. Whereas certainly a lot of the other pursuits, you know, so many of the things you do, making shows, you know, speaking, you know, you can work really hard at it and get nowhere. Right. But you will, I do, you know, there's a lot of people say that's not true. I think if you work hard and you've got an iota of talent, you'll eventually improve, get better. You know, if you can listen to people who are trying to help you, you will get somewhere.
There's so many times you want to quit along the way, though. Like some of these other things, you think, okay, well, I'm in it now, so I have a job. I'm moving forward. At least I have a job. Where these other things are like, I hope I can get a job. I hope that someone will hire me to use all of the accumulated knowledge that I have, you know, that I've gone through trying to prepare for this thing, so that I can actually put it on display, as opposed to just working on my own, and get paid, hopefully, as well.
Get paid. No, that's a huge, I mean, for me, when I was, I mean, I probably would have left medicine if I hadn't been in so much debt with medical school. That's how they keep you there. On Veterans Day now, I mean, I need to pay these off. And then there was some rational thinking, not that I have a lot in my life, but there was a somewhat, it's not the best plan, but I know I'll go to med school and then I can be a doctor in a ski town, and I can work in, you know, community theater and get some independent films going, which happened. So that was kind of cool in its own way.
So you really did think that in the beginning, though?
I mean, it was in my mind, like, okay, and if I do this, I think I was just justifying doing something which I never really planned on doing. It wasn't like I never had this, I'm going to go to medical school, you know, dream. It wasn't this thing of, you know, it was really more of, I mean, I met when we were in Chamonix, I met this amazing doctor. Not sure what he diagnosed me with, but he gave me some pills to take because I was coughing up blood. So I got better, so he must have been really good. But we spent most of the time talking about him skiing with his daughter. And this is a little bit in book 1, but also about the Doctors Without Borders, Médecins Sans Frontières. And so I thought, that sounds really cool. I mean, those guys, that's what I should do. I want to go help, you know, people who actually really need medical help. So it kind of, you know, got in my mind. I thought, I bandied with the idea of medical school. I remember talking to my college advisor. I was thinking, well, I could be like a sports doctor because I get hurt a lot. So, you know.
Got experience there.
So yeah.
At least on the other side.
On that side, it seems like a fun job, you know, being at sports games and stuff. And then he said, he made a good point. He's like, it just sounds like you're bouncing from law school to medical school because you don't know what to do with your life right now. And, you know, if I had, again, the courage thing, you take some time and say, what do you really want to do with your life? You know, what really makes you excited? And I think it's, you know, when you're in college, unless you have that goal and you know exactly what you want to do, it's hard to get experience. It's hard to know, well, what is that like? What is it? You know, you feel like, well, I guess I could go see what it's like working as an accountant or an HR firm or this or advertising, but you know, you got to go spend time there and see it. So, so the doctor thing was there, you know, percolating, and then that happened, and then I think there was a little bit of a jumping to something safe at that time, which is so not, it's you know, medicine certainly was going to be a lot of years and a lot of work. And then I started with a bunch of head injuries, so I had amnesia, so I couldn't remember what I was doing. So that made things more complicated.
No short-term memory when you started med school, which is
Right.
a bit of a detriment, I think.
There weren't a lot of distinct advantages that I recall, but I can't remember it anyway. There was a bunch of rote memorization, so yeah, not having memory wasn't great. But I do think this will sound really bizarre. So I'm on a plane trip. I was supposed to go out to a wedding in San Francisco. It's back when I had miles, and I'm trying to talk to Continental Airlines. But to get there, I had to go through Houston, not the most direct flight from Salt Lake City. And we get grounded. I'm waiting in Houston, and we're just sitting there. And this woman comes walking down the aisle with her little tiny dogs and baskets and things. And I remember looking, like she and I are just not like, I don't know. She sat next to me, and like, we're not going to have anything to say. 2 hours later, I think we're still on the runway. And we're still like, we have not shut up together. Like we were just. She was like a relationship specialist, and so I don't know what we were talking about. And so we gave each other a big hug in San Francisco when we left, and it became this person that randomly, and again, you go, this must not have been a coincidence. We would call each other every few months, and she'd be like, "I can't believe you called today. Like I just needed somebody to talk to," and she would call me on that day when I had this day where, I mean, this sounds again so weird. So I get stung by a bee, and it just hurt a lot. And I remember I tried putting chicken seasoning on it. I didn't realize it, so I spiced it. You're supposed to put like meat tenderizer or something on your. I don't know. I've heard somebody say you're supposed to. I'm
I always
a
thought it
doctor.
was baking soda.
Maybe.
I don't know.
This is not a medical expert show at this point. So it's not. Anyway, she calls up that day and she says, "What's going on?" And I start telling her about this bee and what had happened. She asked me what were you thinking when the bee stung you? What was happening? I was running on the trails, and I remember I'd passed a few people and they were all dressed in their fancy running clothes, and I'm usually in like whatever.
Ratty t-shirt.
And thinking, well, I just passed those people, whatever. And she starts crying. I mean, she's in tears. She's like, "John, I don't know what it's going to take. It's going to take a wall falling on your head for you to realize you're good enough. You don't need to please people. You don't need to impress people. Like you're a good person." And she's crying. I mean, she's like, I'm like, and it really hit me. But I was like, "Oh, whatever." And the next day I have this bike accident and I wake up in the neurology ward, with a bleed in my brain. This is 4 weeks before medical school. And it was almost like that wall that she was talking about, like everything, like the ease with which I used to be able to remember things. And, school was pretty easy for me overall. I mean, I had to work hard, but get good grades. And that was gone. It didn't matter how hard I tried. I couldn't remember anything. And I think, so there was this little silver lining. I think if that hadn't happened, I think I would have just been driven to try to be, top of the class, gone for the most competitive residency, just because that's what you do. You just, you work hard. And instead I couldn't. And my friends were still my friends, and I couldn't be at the top of the class. In fact, I got the lowest grade in the class in the first exam. I was like, what am I going to do? So I finally had to go tell the administrators, like, "Hi, I just had a bleed in my brain a month ago, and I just had another bike accident 2 days ago. That's why I'm covered in gauze and blood. So I can't remember anything. I can't remember where I'm going. I can't remember how to get home half the days." And they at least said, why don't we get you like into one of the counselors here? So it was interesting because I think it did change probably my trajectory where I went into, and then I got through med school. It's like, this is still not what I want to be doing. I knew that. So I was sneaking out of the hospital going to auditions for TV shows and movies, and I'd show up at a coffee shop first thing in the morning and hand wrote my first screenplay, or complete one, that eventually we filmed.
And is this the conflict? I mean, your friend whom you met on the plane was saying, you have to recognize that you are good enough.
That took years of therapy and some other people I met to really help me through those issues. That was.
But is that part of it? Because it's been existing for a long. Like the medicine, in some ways, is a difficult and celebrated road.
Sure.
But at the same time, it's not necessarily what you want to do, and being conflicted with the other side of this creative side, which then you say, okay, well, I can do this, but will anybody ever buy what I do? Am I signing myself up for a life of being a struggling artist?
Right.
And balancing these two and trying to take that jump and recognizing that maybe I do have something unique to say and to share. Was that the conflict that you were in, or was it?
Well, I think it's interesting. After the past 2 years of the pandemic, I think people have all taken a step back. Yeah. And, I think, and even modern technology advent's given more people can say, well, I want to do this and this. It's really given us time. And I think, I think we were in that same time frame where this is what you did. You were still in the mindset of you're going to get a job at this career and you're going to follow it, and that's going to be success. But for me, it was
because you are intelligent. So it's like, I mean, you're
But
intelligent.
You and I together,
together we might be intelligent. Yeah, exactly. But you do have that. It's almost like, well, you've had this kind of background. You've had this kind of a gift from your family, the gift of education, the gift of intelligence.
Absolutely.
That then it's irresponsible in some ways.
There was that for sure. I mean, you came from, being able to go to college was a big gift, and being able to go to med school was a big gift. So yeah, there was a lot of that, and I felt like when you're given this much, you certainly should give back. And so that's why I originally wanted to go into politics, environmental work, and just to do more conservation efforts. That was why I went was looking at law school. I think that's certainly when you look at screenwriting, it comes down to storytelling. So many of the archetypal stories about wants and needs and facing our fears, and what we want is not always what we need. Those base concerns of, are we loved? Are we good enough? They come back time and time again, and all the most the stories that I think do it the best. And we love just some simple stories that don't go anywhere. They're just fun and hilarious. But if you look at the ones that have heart to it, you see like an arc of a character. You see them transforming, and I think we can all relate to those types of stories. So certainly, where those all come from within us all, who knows? I mean, sometimes there's some blatant trauma, or characters that forced it on you, or we just face it for no overt reason. So there probably was that too, a little bit of I need to do something to prove myself a little bit, whether to myself or to others. And medicine was certainly, like you said, it was probably still is, like a route that people look at and say, that's a good thing. You're going to help people. It seems like a good thing to do. But I could never let it go. Like, I just wanted to do something creative. And, it becomes something, I think as you get older, it's not, I want to be a Hollywood star was never the thing, but I just loved acting. I mean, you and I were in some acting classes.
Well, that's where we met, really.
We met at the fundraiser, and then I said, you should come down to this acting class and join us. And we were doing writing together, or writing accountability. I just loved it. I mean, Frank, our acting teacher, was like, you would do this for nothing. I was like, I am doing it for nothing. I love it. I'm paying you to. We're producing shows downtown and up here, and and just, I could do that all day long. It's like recess. It's playtime. It's follow your bliss.
But it's essential at the same time, isn't it? I mean, the idea of storytelling is something that really is timeless. If you do it well, you capture that moment. You capture what it means to be human. It captures, what it means to have been in that moment in time.
Yeah. No, that's. Yeah, I mean, you look at the oldest things that we have of history is from storytelling. It's cave paintings. It's we have, telling stories is how we've passed on who we are, what we've done, what not to do, how to survive. So it's been through storytelling. So it is there, and it is, I think, archetypal. We tell stories to our kids. They like to hear stories, and I think it is essential. I think it's essential to what we do. I think the struggle sometimes, at least for me. I mean, I look at your stories and your movies, and we've talked about this. There's certain stories that a lot of times writing class will tell you, why does this story need to be told? And I'm thinking, well, none of it. What I have to say needs to be told. It's just I think it's funny. But you look at you have a mission with your stories, with your films, with your books. You're telling a very inspiring, heroic. Talk about overcoming the odds and trying to affect population. To open their eyes and be aware of what we can do for people with disabilities and or other books with racism or something like that. I look at what I write and going, my stories don't battle any of these big themes. And at the same time, when we were putting on plays like the Shakespeare play, the complete works of William Shakespeare abridged, it was a hilariously written play. And I remember telling our fellow actors, the guys I was doing it with, if one person gets to enjoy their day because they saw this, then we've done something good. And I remember this woman coming up, she's like, I was having the worst day. And I saw you guys tonight, and it just made me laugh. And I just got to tell you, it was really great. I'm like, okay, we've done something good. We've made one person happy. So there is that. There's something about the arts that, it can do that.
Now, I mean, you talk about it as playtime, and you talk about that you would do it for free. But at the same time, you did a whole lot of work to prepare yourself to be an actor, to prepare yourself to be a director, because we will talk about your movie. as well. And I mean, I don't think, I mean, we have to talk about your movie because I don't think I've ever seen you as passionate about something as you were when you were making your movie. And also just looking at, I mean, one of the cool things that I saw in the movie was you hired a bunch of people who were really skilled, who were really talented. And those people said, if John does something again, I want to be a part of it. Which and you were a first time director. So that is a huge compliment. So you got yourself to the point where you actually knew what you were doing before you did it, as opposed to apologizing to people afterwards to say, I'm sorry, I'm a first time director. I don't really know what I'm doing. But you actually knew what you were doing. So the attacking the idea of how you do this, because there was a conflict with, you know, the safe side in some ways of being a doctor and being a grown-up, which then the other side in some ways feels like being the child and doing this creative stuff and playing, but you put a whole lot of work into the creative side in order to be prepared and in order to do it well. What was your mindset? Was that just fun? Was that just going along, following something, trying to you know, just trying to figure out how to do it well because you just wanted so desperately to do it well? How did that fit?
Yeah, well,
this is interesting, like looking at the body language here. You're all contorted at this point.
I'm trying to remember, going back, let me go back to that, who I was. No, it's a great question. When you bring up stuff where you haven't thought about what was the mindset. When I say I feel like a child doing it, the play, because I could. I mean, you know, people used to say when we talk about medicine, and then also when they'd start asking me about, oh wait, I hear you wrote a movie or you liked writing, and I like, so many people would say, do you realize you just completely changed the way you talk? Like, you're a different person. Like, I didn't even recognize you, because I mean, I felt like I was so contained in medicine in a box, and it wasn't what I wanted to do. But then all of a sudden I could talk about what I loved, and you're just like, oh my God, let's, you know, you could just, and it's so excited, you know, I could work on rehearsing scenes all night long and just loved it. I, you know, could care less, you know, could talk about film forever. And then, so that's when I say like childlike play, like it was just like recess, like you could just do it. I mean, I could do it 7 days a week, all day long, and you know, it was never stop. But I think just who I was you always worked hard at it. You know, like, you know, if we put on a play, well, yeah, we're going to rehearse the snot out of it. You know, you're going to do it and do it and do it until we, you know, make it the best you can. And so, you know, people, like when I made the film, when I directed it, I felt like I was having the best time of my life. And at the same time, it was the most frustrating, hardest, like you had just tears banging your head on the desk, so frustrating, no sleep, hating it, that part of it. And at the same time, this is the best thing I've ever done. This is awesome. But it wasn't because it was just like birthday party fun. It was just the hard work that you got out of it. And I don't think you would have enjoyed it as much if it wasn't. So for me, like you said, it was getting the best people around me. And I got so fortunate that some of the people that came on, you know, were willing to do it. So that was just a gift to the film, because you have a guy who's Gino Salvatore, who shoots a gorgeous film, and the sound and the music people were amazing, and you know, the actors were great. So the part that's probably not good is the writing, and that was all on me since I wrote it. So that was,
which is the self-critical part as well.
It was, yes. But the great thing is I could look at it very objectively and go, oh, I read lots of screenwriting books and I've studied lots of movies, but until you do it, it was kind of like my film 101. And then you get to say, okay, now I get it. Now I can see what didn't work. And so after that, I just started going to screenwriting festivals and attending screenwriting lectures, and just, you know, and I just sat down and wrote script after script after script. Just saying,
listening to podcasts.
Oh, and yeah, podcasts hadn't really come out yet even then. This is
right.
This is before, you know, this is a new thing. So now the like things like the Script Notes podcast, and there's a whole bunch of screenwriting ones, Meg LaFave ones. It's amazing. So you can learn so much great craft. And again, I think it'd be one thing to hear them, but until you actually write a lot, you don't really get it. And until you maybe, you know, for me to see it was such a gift. You know, I mean, it was, like I said, it was my film school. I mean, it took cashing out my 401k, maxing 4 credit cards, having a lot of friends take, you know, they knew they were saying, here, we're going to give you the money.
Did you sell your house too? Or
yep, that went into it. Yep. And my car.
in your car.
Yeah, and so
But this was also the script that you started writing when you were in residency, right? This was was the coffee shop.
Hand wrote it.
Yeah.
Went through a lot of renditions. It's one of the ones I do. I'd love to do to do it again, because the story originally was based around a friend of mine, a very dear friend, who died, who was a bike racer, and he was killed in a car accident, and it just devastated all of us. And so I wanted to do it was kind of a tribute to him as a bike racing film about what one person goes through when their friend dies. And the original theme, I had this idea of, if you know, Beethoven's Ninth Symphony is broken into 4 parts, 4 different movements, and it's supposed to be this basically 3 different aspects of his life that aren't working in each of the first 3 movements, and then you get the famous Ode to Joy that the bit of the Ninth Symphony everybody knows. And so I had the original script was basically this guy lying in a ditch, and he's been hit by a car. And it's kind of in the musical piece where there's this loud crash sound that says, "No more of these. This isn't right, and this is what this is about. This is the ode to humanity and love." And it was about to be this guy kind of looking back as he's lying, trying to decide, does he try to crawl out of the ditch? He's alone in the desert after he's hit on his bike and the car drives off. And he looks back on different aspects of his life, his career as a bike racer, his relationship with a woman, and none of them are working. And so realizing there's still a lot to hold out for. Wait, I want to make these things work still. It's the people in my life. It's that woman. That's why I want to get out. And that's what the last quarter of the movie was meant to be. And it became a very generic kind of sports movie that wasn't so good, but it was still a great learning process. So, after you rewrote it, and a lot of people kind of said, well, I think if I'd had trusted my own instinct to go with something, it would have been a little bit more daring. And I went a safer route. But that was one thing. I mean, filming a bunch of bike racers for a first-time director, the first film people will know this. My very first day directing, we filmed 10 pages, which is a lot to do with a major change of location too, on my very first day directing. So it was a huge amount to do. And then we do these bike days where we're just trying to get one person riding down the road, just to get it right. And you're like, they're actors. They don't know how to look on a racing bike. So it was and they were such good sports. And we're trying to make, with no money, trying to make it look like a big race. And so it was a lot of fun just figuring it out and getting it to work. Yeah, and that's right when you were filming your movie too. So we were kind of running. Well, we showed up at a film festival together.
We did the Napa Valley Film Festival,
yeah, a blast.
Which was great fun. But that pursuit. But you were still balancing that too, right? So you were still balancing. You were still a doctor.
I was still a doctor. I did take a pseudo sabbatical at that point. And I said in my clinic, I was a medical director of some urgent care clinics that were privately owned, and so I made the rules up, but I had a pretty good relationship with everybody. They knew I worked really hard and had, everything was fine. So I said, okay, I'm going to take off for a bunch of months and do this. And they knew that I loved this. They would all come to the plays I would put on and stuff. So they've seen me in very silly theater productions. So if anything, they were very supportive, luckily.
So there was the medicine side. Then there was then there was the movie, and then there was the family.
Yeah, well, that's why we filmed the movie when we did, because that had been bouncing around. We'd sent it out for bigger budgets, and it just wasn't getting made. I was writing some other scripts, and I came upstairs one day. My now wife she was on the floor. She didn't look very good. I said, "You okay?" And she said, "No, I'm really dizzy." I said, "What's going on?" She said, "I'm pregnant." And this is with our second. So and I barely survived our first year with our first child. He had severe colic. Poor guy was just yelling for 23 hours a day, and none of us slept. I mean, I had PTSD. I had tendonitis from doing so many deep knee bends trying to get him to sleep. And as soon as you stop moving, you'd be in the thousands, just dripping sweat, and he'd be asleep, and all of a sudden you'd stop and he'd be screaming hysterically. And I'd feel guilty going to work because Chandler would be home with Luca.
Child.
And she'd look at me like daggers, like, I can't believe you get to go spend 16 hours listening to sick people complain about their diarrhea, and I'm stuck here with this kid screaming. I was like, I know, it's such a fun life I get to escape to, but it did. It felt like you were escaping. People would show up and be like, oh my goodness, can you look at my kid? He's been snotty and crying for 20 minutes. What do we do? It's like, I'm going to kill you right now. Is what's going to happen, actually. And so when she said she said she was pregnant, I was like, oh my goodness, if this is anything like the first time, we're never going to make a movie. So when she said I'm pregnant, I said, wow. And then I said, we're going to film the movie this year. And I was just committed.
You said that to her
in
the
did.
moment?
That was exactly what I said. And
how did that go over?
I think she was dizzy, like they might not have listened to me. We'll see how much she listens to me anyway. And so it was just a mental commitment. And the quotation about until you're committed, there's hesitancy, the need to draw back. and once you commit, things go your way. So it was that we said, I'm going to find a way to do it, and it just found the lowest budget we could make it on, and ended up going to a very close family friend, and we presented it and pitched it, and he said, what's the lowest budget? So we even dropped it lower than that. We said, we can make it for this much. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, can we? I'm looking at the guy, this unit production guy with me, and he says, well, if you can find the other half, we'll put up half. And so, I mean, I was about to just leap over and kiss this guy, and I was just, that was it. So I was like, all right, I'm cashing out everything. I'm going to other friends, and so we got the money together, and it ended up being more than that. We had to get but we got money from the state of Utah, and like I said, credit cards, film commission. Yeah, we had to present it, do that. So that was great. We had to go back and ask for more money to complete it. Ended up going a little bit over what we predicted, but got it made, committed, and did it. So that was that led to somebody else asking me, hey, I heard you wrote a bike movie. And I said, yeah, I'm never doing that again. After, he's like, oh, because I just got the rights to a book with kids on bikes. It's like, he says, and we need somebody to write it. So I was like, oh, okay. So, and they, so that was, it's just, one thing leads to the other. If you hadn't done that, you never would have gotten the next step, and the next films were leading to the books. Who knows? So.
You never really know. And that's the hard part on that road, right? Is that you can do this and it might go nowhere, or it might go somewhere, or it might go somewhere in a year or two or whatever. And can you persevere and be able to stick around long enough for luck to happen sometimes?
Absolutely. And there is we've talked. That's one of the things I think you can really be nervous. One, you can hit a lot of resistance and lose all momentum if you're worried about, well, I just want to get a movie made. I want to make this, like we talked about, saying, it's such a big thing to think I want to make this book, or I want to do something big, and you have to kind of go back to that. Well, then start writing. Every day. It takes the little steps that get you there. You don't climb Kilimanjaro by saying I want to be at the top. You climb it by training hard, and then one step at a time. But the resistance, the failure thing. I think there's a lot of. We can certainly do a deep dive on that. The self-criticism and the resistance, and how hard that can hit you, and you can just slave through that, and how much that can paralyze you. But you find different tricks to get through it. But that thought of there is no failure, you will learn along the way. It will take you to another place, and so I do think, at some point, just doing things makes, whether it is just putting pen to paper, stepping out and doing it, it will lead somewhere. Scary as that will be.
Is that easy enough? Is that something you have to reconcile in your mind? Because it's easy to paint things as failure, right? That you made a movie and it should have won an Oscar. And so since you didn't win an Oscar, since somebody didn't buy your movie and make you whole financially, it's a failure.
Well, I think I was pretty honest. I knew it was an okay film. I didn't, like I said, I think we turned it into something too generic. And so I was objectively with the film, I never thought it was going to win awards. I got lucky that it got into a few festivals, and it was bought for rights in different countries. That was another learning curve. We got ripped off, and the guy never paid us. He took all our money and did that to a few other filmmakers who got together and wanted to go beat the guy up.
Learn a lot of painful lessons.
You learn some painful lessons. You don't forget them that way, which is good, I guess. So that's maybe very almost like skeptical with a book, like who I've hired on the second book. Because the first book I just did on myself, and the second book I've decided, well, I'll hire I shouldn't say that. I had an editor who edited the first book, and then gave me a lot of notes for me to go back and rewrite, and then had a cover designer. I didn't design the cover, things like that. So I shouldn't say I did it myself, but I did put it out and publish it and market it and do the ads. And then for the second book, I've had somebody else, but I've been so nervous. How do you find the right person? And with the film, we just went through so many people who, you don't know what you're doing, and so there's a lot of you have to learn as you go.
You mentioned that you did the film before Matthias.
Yeah.
Matthias. I can pronounce stuff here. But anyway, before Matthias was born, and you have 3 kids.
Well,
now.
I shouldn't say that. He was born during filming.
He was born during filming.
He was actually in the film. We have Luca was in. I wrote for those of you who know Tour de France history, there's a famous moment when Lance Armstrong looks back at Jan Ullrich, gives him the look, right. And that's when he takes off, as if to say, come with me, and he couldn't. And so we put that at the beginning of the film. Our hero is riding his bike through a park, and he looks back. He passes this woman pushing a stroller, and he's in his head. He's like, Lance Armstrong looks back at Jan. So he looks back at this pregnant woman and just sprints off. And so the pregnant woman we have is my wife. So she was inexpensive at the time. And so it's August, and she's pushing a stroller with a Lucas 2 up a hill repeatedly in a really hot day. And I'm not sure the film crew was very impressed by me on that day. And then maybe that's why I thought I wasn't a first-time director. Look at him just cracking the whip, making that pregnant woman walk up the hill. That was it was the second to last day of primary shooting. And all of a sudden we get a call later in the day. We're filming at a cafe, and I get a call. Your wife's on one of the phones, production phones. So I was like, what's going on? She says, I'm over here at the hospital. It turns out I'm in labor. So,
this exercise of shooting induced it?
Well, who knows, right? It was, he was scheduled for a C-section a little bit later. So all of a sudden, and she said, and they're going to do it right now. And I used to do a lot of OB medicine. I was like, what do you mean they're going to do it right now? Are you like progressing? Are you okay? Are you like, no, I'm fine. They just said they want to do it right now. It's like, and so I didn't realize on speakerphone. So I very sarcastic, like, what does the OB have? Like a dinner date? She can't wait until I get there. She can wait until I get there. I'll be there in like half an hour. Tell her to wait. And so it wasn't our OB. Our OB is fantastic. And he was just not on call right when she gets brought down and was checked. And they said, you're actually, you need to have a C-section now. And so when I got there, this woman wouldn't talk to me. Usually it's kind of a friendly scenario, but she was apparently thought I was a really obnoxious idiot. So Matthias was, I left filming, and that luckily it was towards the end of the day. And the next day, it was our last day of shooting. So at lunch break, I raced up to the hospital. So it was pretty special. But on the credits, you get to see, I think you might even say like Matthias in stomach. So that's his first film, in utero. Pretty good.
That is awesome. Well, he's starting his IMDb quickly now. But is this part of, it's like this happened, the filming happened right before Matthias was born.
Yeah.
Is this part of the message? Is this part of the lesson that you want to teach your children? I mean, are you kind of living the path that you want to teach your children?
That was a big part of it too. It really was when I was making the film or the theater stuff we did. It was, I would talk to, we talk about it, saying I don't want the kids seeing me working as a doctor because that's not what I said I wanted to be. I want them to know I took chances, knowing this could be a smashing failure. This is not going to be, but your dad did it anyway. This is what he loved to do, so he did it. He wanted to do theater, he did it. He did, committed to certain things and would do it. So that was really, it was important that that message was passed on, because I could certainly look back at my life and, there's a lot of things I've done that I was very afraid of, but I looked at one of the biggest things I did with medicine, and again, it did take a lot of work and time, but it wasn't what my dream was. And so it's not that I regret it. I certainly had what's the right word? No, it's not so much like, it's been an honor to help people, but it felt like it was a good thing to do. It did bring me, I learned a lot, got to work with a lot of amazing people, but it wasn't my dream, and I wish I had had that courage earlier not to do it. I didn't, so this is where life took me. But it's a message I do tell them nowadays is, I don't care what you do or choose to be. I just want it to be something that you really want to do. I want you to have, want to work hard at it, something you enjoy, because then you'll do well.
Isn't that flip side hard as a parent though? The idea of your kid going into something that they might love to do, but not being able to support themselves in doing. Well,
that's always that. Yeah, that's a tough one, because yes. I think as a parent, I think enough steps back, you realize you're not going to fail. If it's something you really love to do, you're going to find a way to do it. And if they're working in restaurants and trying to be a writer, great. I'm gonna, obviously we'll help support them, but I'm not as concerned. I think as you feel on the other side. I think as the child, as the person, when you're in the shoes of I need to succeed in people's eyes, it's probably a lot more pressure. And I think from my point of view now, you look back and go, you look at all our friends and all the things they've done, and everybody takes different chances and they find different ways. And so they're young enough yet that we're not facing it, but I'll probably sing a different tune when they're old enough and tell me what they really want to do. No, you go be a doctor first, then you can do that. Then you can raise 50 dogs.
When you finally made the decision, because as long as I've known you, you've been on the fence as far as not on the fence. You've been saying, I'm going to leave medicine. I'm going to leave medicine. I'm going to leave medicine. Mm-hmm. And then when you finally decided to leave medicine, what was What was that decision like?
Well, there's probably two big leaps that I made. One, I'd had a very traditional medical career, and that was for different reasons that we don't need to go into. It was really, one, it was shift work, which is great because I could work 2 or 3 long shifts a week, and then I'd have the other days to work on film. So in some ways it was ideal. And for a lot of years it was. And then things changed where I was working, work scenario changed. We had kids, so suddenly saying goodbye to them in the morning and I'll see you the next day. Because by the time I got home it was late at night and they were asleep. So I wouldn't see them for, that was really hard on both of us, or all of us. So when I left that job, I remember I was so excited to give my 2-month, whatever you call it, resignation. And it was one of those, I remember I met with a woman, I was at a coffee shop, and I hadn't seen a friend from a ski team for a while, and I was like, what are you doing? She's like, I told her I was working as a doctor, but I want to leave. And I said, what are you doing? She said, I'm a life coach. And I said, I need a life coach. This is fantastic. And she bullet pointed down, well, how much, do you have enough money to leave? I was like, no, not yet, but I can figure out how. And, so we really made some points of how to leave. And it was really within like 2-3 weeks, actually, I thought, okay, I'm writing my resignation letter. I'm going to find some other way to do it. And when I left that job, I took off my scrubs and I took off my shoes and I did cartwheels out the front door of the clinic in my underwear. And that was a joyous, I'm done. I felt such relief. I remember seeing friends like, you seem really relaxed and happy. I was like, I am. I left this job. And at the same time, I started talking with a friend who had wanted to work together and open a clinic before. And it was, again, one of these, as soon as you made that commitment, I'm going to leave, one of our mutual friends who had introduced us said, have you talked to Reagan? He might want to start a clinic up here. I said, no. So I sent him a message. He said, I'm in Germany. Let's meet next week. So we met, the following week. And we said, great, let's open a clinic. A month later, we've opened a clinic in Park City, but it was more of much more aligned with my own visions of health, right. Treating things naturally, more of a functional medicine clinic. We started doing a lot of regenerative medicine. So in some ways it was brand new medicine in a way. So again, that fear, that challenge of having to learn something I didn't know was really exciting and challenging. And it was more aligned with what I believed in, what I thought, for my own beliefs in health and wellness.
Not just giving out painkillers.
Not just giving out painkillers, yeah.
Right.
And really trying to, and I got to spend much longer time with each patient, got to know them. So it was really, in a sense, that was a much better shift that I could actually leave medicine in really good terms. And I really enjoyed those patients. Now at the same time, and I was very blunt with them saying, but my first love is I want to get back to making movies. So, I was able to find the time to write the book, and I kept cutting down my hours there, cutting down the hours, also doing other work or career things and writing here, and have another kid. And so I finally just said, I can't do all this. I need to really be focused on maybe 2 jobs, not 4 or 5, and my family, and taking care of myself. And so I left that one, and that was by the time I did that, I was ready to leave, and it left on good terms. And so it was, but I didn't have to do cartwheels out the front door. It was, I still go back and say hi to everybody. And patients, 2 years later now, I stopped by to get acupuncture, and I was there the other day, and they had multiple patients calling saying, can Dr. Lawrence still treat me? Is he still, can you get him to come in maybe just for me? So it was, so that's nice in a way.
It's super nice and flattering, and I have to say that you were a really good doctor, as much as you might not endorse that.
We can mock my medicine.
You can mock.
I can mock my medicine very well. It's in the books. You can see how much I mock it. I had some really great training. I was very fortunate to have, all the residency programs, and the teachers here. You have an amazing medical community. So I was very fortunate to be a part of it and to learn from them. And in medicine, it's very, you're taught basically there's only one right way to do it. There's basically an acceptable way. And so you strive for that. And, but it was there was no struggle to leave. And it was really exciting, to get these books going and go, this is what I want to focus on. It just felt so true to myself, and, I love it.
What does that momentum feel like? I mean, is it creating momentum having one book out that is on, you said it's a small niche, but at the same time, that is a bestseller on Amazon.
Yeah.
And then the next one is coming out, and the third one is going to be following close behind.
Yeah. No, it's a day-to-day thing. There's days where I can sit here and hear you say that out loud, and I go, oh my goodness, that's so cool. I can't believe that happened. And on most days, it doesn't feel like that at all. You just feel like, okay, it's another day I've got to get cover written for the back of the second book, and I've got to edit the third, and I'm trying to work on the film scripts. And oh my goodness, I think the second book sucks. Nobody's going to read it. If any, it's not, I'm surprised anybody read the first book. So it's a very dynamic day to day. My writing's terrible. Well, none of these stories are good enough. So I think this book has nothing, this doesn't help humanity at all. And other days you go, well, look, I sold 10 books. That's exciting. So, but it does when I say it out loud, thinking, okay, next summer we'll have 3 published books. That's, exciting unto itself. But it does, it gives you a little bit of belief, but like I said, a little bit. I think that resistance is still there all the time. Okay, sit down, write, turn everything else off, get the work done. It's pretty basic.
What's that like? In some ways, it's almost like you're facing your mortality every day, kind of thing. That you look at it and go, my writing's awful. Why? How can I do this? I don't really want to do that. It's like, you want to get there, but that battle, that initial battle of just getting over yourself is something that is every single day, and might not have been like when you were a doctor. It probably wasn't the same way, right?
Well, no, I think it is. I think we talked about it a little earlier that I've only come to terms with it recently at a book club, talking about leaving medicine. When you're in medicine, you just did the work, and it was what you did, and I was somebody who just didn't really let my patients go. So it was on your mind so much more than you probably even realized, because you want to just, even the patient, you thought maybe I hadn't thought of something, or maybe I didn't do the right test. You'd be home thinking about that late at night, or keeping you awake, or while you're seeing the patients, I'd be taking extra time with every patient I couldn't figure out, because of, pre-Google days, you're in books, and then you're trying to find other articles on the patient, or calling up to consult on somebody, and you're falling behind your schedule. And you're like, oh, I need to do the exact right job for every patient. You wanted to do that level, and if you didn't do it right, for 99 patients you might take care of well. If you had one that didn't go well, or didn't like the way you treated them, you just wanted to quit right then. Felt like you're just the biggest loser. You're probably the worst doctor in the world, and it was just awful. Certainly with the writing, as writing a book about when you're the main character, it's not only are they going to criticize my writing, my story sucks because I'm the person. So obviously my life must be a failure, because who would want to read this? But I don't know if it's. I think for me personally, I think all writers face that. For me personally, I did realize I could let criticism really hit me hard. Being somewhat of a people pleaser type thing. I remember reading some early, we put out some really early, like almost teasers, not even trailers, not even commercials for the film. They were just like, hey, we want to cut some fun stuff together with the bike racing to show people. And Specialized had donated some jerseys. Some of the nastiest comments I've ever seen. I started having much more empathy for real, the real artists out there, the musicians, and real, people who've written big books and films. I was like, I write nothing but good reviews now for anybody, because you realize anybody that accomplishes, anybody who does anything, the work and the courage it took to get there is tremendous, and the effort it takes should only be rewarded. As the critics on the couch who wrote just about this little trailer, just like we were the worst people in the world, just ripped us apart. And you wanted to respond and be like, I gave up my life savings, and it's not Specialized. Like, they were nice enough to donate some jerseys, and it was just, anyway, it was just so personal and so nasty. So I realized this is a perfect forum for somebody like me, who apparently has issues being criticized. Not that I would get mean and confrontational, but it just hurt, it hurt deeply. And I talked to other, again, people who were, in real bands who are, playing internationally, and they're like, oh yeah, we just don't we can't read criticism, so we don't read it. So I've stopped. I don't read the reviews, good or bad. I just don't look at them. Right. And but at the same time I go, this is actually really good for me. Of all the things, if this is one of my issues, and this is a fear I need to face, well, I guess I've chosen a chosen a fight that it's going to be right back in my face. So that'll be, what better way than to face your fears?
So you talked about the life coach. You talked about the journey. Showing up every single day. What do you think the next 5 years looks like? Can you map that out? You have your idea, but
yeah, I do. Where it goes, nobody knows, right? Who predicted this pandemic the last 2 years? Who could have seen, life, things like that. So I've been working, luckily, with, we've got this, an acoustics analytics company that I've been working with, and we're hoping can do some good things to help monitor anxiety and depression. So hopefully we'll do something really good with that. And our goal is to sell the company next year, and then the book will come out, and my goal is, okay, back to making movies. I'm going to make my next 2 independent films, and hopefully that'll lead to, I've got this dream project.
So the objective is to be full-time in making movies and writing.
That's what I want to do, full-time, 100%.
Yeah. And that seems relatively, it seems possible, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, I'm going to do it. So, I mean, I might be having to, be asking for jobs at restaurants, a month into it, but if that's the case, that's the case. But yeah, I'm so excited to get back to the next film, to get back to writing. And like I said, maybe these books lead somewhere else. But, and again, I'm not sure where it leads to, but certainly writing, full time. Yeah.
And part of it is...
That might be 3 a.m. with a day job too, but whatever it is.
Well, you've done that before, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Part of it is this personal journey, though, too, right? I mean, for you, how much have you learned along the way in this journey? I mean, you're talking about
what have you learned,
the
Dorothy?
Criticism, the recognizing that is one of your touch points is the criticism.
Yeah, I think.
But I mean, obviously,
I think at some point you've.
Too.
Yeah, I mean that's like a screenwriting. Like archetypal theme, like if you don't learn something, it doesn't matter where you leave or change your location, change your jobs, the problems are still going to hit you. It doesn't matter. Well, in certain circumstances, certainly for me leaving, there was finding a better job in a way that aligned better with my interests. But your personal who you are doesn't change unless you're willing to face some of those issues and force change. And change is never easy, as we all know. Sometimes it's forced on you.
Right.
You have an accident and suddenly everything has changed. Suddenly, other times you have to make the change. And how each of us faces that, we each have our own challenges, and it takes our own work to go through it. But if you're not willing to go through the change, then you face other resistance, and that leads towards other forms of angst or depression or other issues. So I don't know what I've learned. I might not have learned anything, that I need to take more writing classes, I guess.
I don't think that's I mean, I'm sure you need to continue to grow and take
improve.
more.
But I think that's what I love, and I think you do too. I mean, everything you've done in your life has been to challenge yourself. You've never said, well, now I'm going to sit back. Now, okay, I've got these medals, now what's my next challenge? Everything you've done has been keep challenging myself, keep pushing myself, and then you do learn, and you do change, and you do grow, and you help other people, so I think there is that desire. I think I don't think we are. I think as people we don't like to just be stagnant. You rust if you stagnate. So to keep pushing forward. I mean, we've talked about that. Is that sometimes that battles against being just content? Can I just be happy with where I am? I'm like, yes, but it doesn't mean I don't want to keep pushing to do more and challenge myself. I mean, I think that's therein lies the fun. Yeah, I mean, standing at the top of the run you haven't done before, or setting a goal in a marathon, or making another TV show and putting yourself out there. I mean, there's a certain adrenaline that goes with that, and there's a certain level of there's only certain ways I think in modern society that we truly get to challenge ourselves and face death, because I don't really want to die, really. I mean, I've got a long time to go on that. Hopefully,
this is the Calvin and Hobbes
exactly
quote, right?
Exactly.
What is that Calvin and Hobbes quote?
It's one where you do what God's put me on this earth to accomplish a certain amount of things, and right now I'm so far behind, I'm never going to die. So I think you and I, we've got some longevity going for us right now. There's a lot to do.
We might live forever. This is immortality.
This is it. Just keep falling behind.
It is true. It's been I mean, looking at it from the outside, it's been a challenging journey. I mean, wanting to be a writer, wanting to be an actor, wanting to make films, doing all of these things. I mean, I remember going to our film class, and then we'd generally go out after the film class, and then you'd go back and write until 5 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. And what do you say to yourself? Like, how do you keep going when you're not sleeping, when you're getting no's as answers for all of your dreams? I think I felt so privileged. I mean, in so many ways. I mean, I think I always had a hard time ever complaining. And people would look at me. Here I was like the one person who didn't want to be in med school, with a head injury, and I had all my friends saying, "You're the only person that smiles through med school." I mean, I was like, you're just kind of like, this is what you just do what you're here for. You just enjoy it. You laugh. You do it. You just do the work. And so for me, it was just. I think compared to most people, how could I complain where you've got people who are food insecure? You've got people who are, afraid to walk down their street. There's so many people who
are truly in difficult straits that to me, I'm living this middle class lifestyle as a white male. So there was, how could I say my life was difficult or challenged? So it never felt like that level of challenge. If I didn't have the money for a movie, I felt like my attitude, it wasn't even an attitude. I think my mind was like, well, it's a movie nobody's going to see anyway, but I'm just going to keep trying to get it made. It wasn't, so it wasn't like, I wasn't like, oh my, I never had this sense of this is so hard and this is something I have to do. And, that level of angst didn't seem to accomplish anything. But I think there's just a deep belief that no matter how difficult it was, I was going to get there. It was just kind of that sense of, I'm going to run a 3-hour marathon. Well, I'm going to train to do it, and I will. And I'm going to get a movie made. I don't know how. I don't know how.
Where does that deep belief come from, though?
Well, honestly, I've definitely dealt with mostly like a lot of therapy of, trying to, like I said, there were a lot of tears too. I've had some definitely trying to realize you are good enough. And that was probably more proving it to, deep-seated issues. But even with the film, like with the book, I wrote it. Must have thought it was going to go somewhere if I wrote it. And then eventually I had to, self-publish it to get it out there. I don't know how, but again, it wasn't, so to me it was like, well, I just self-published it. So it takes away from the accomplishment in a way. It wasn't like some publisher came and said, here's, so I think I naturally just diminish or I think the book's self-deprecating for a reason. It's like I can laugh at my life, like I said, and in some ways it's been pretty good. But I think, we've always, I keep going back to sports analogies just because, with skiing stuff, it was just, you kept going bigger and bigger and you wanted to go down more challenging terrain and you kept pushing to be at the top. But there was also that flow that comes with it. And I think the reason analogies work in sports is it's physically, so we're able to tap into it right there in the moment. Whereas with a book, it's a whole lot more of, banging your head on the desk and sitting down to that blank page and writing it, and then you sometimes just have a good moment. Or maybe one person comes up and says, oh my goodness, that just made me laugh. That was I really enjoyed it. And you go, okay, that was all worth it.
Which is when you get to share it. Because there are a lot of times when you're writing a book that it's just so solitary. You are on your own and you show up in your office or in your coffee shop or wherever you show up and go, okay, well, I'm doing this today. This is what I decided I'm going to do, and this is what I'm going to do. You mentioned that your kids were kind of, being this example in some ways for your kids and being able to help them see that they should do what they want to do, that they should be passionate about whatever they're going to do. What do you wish that they would say about you?
Oh, just that Dad loved us. He supported us. Again, that stuff gets really simple.
Is that it? That's the simple part.
Oh my goodness! If when they're older, I hope they say, "Dad made us laugh," and he used to, run around the house doing crazy things with us and being silly, and he, he wanted us to be happy, and to do whatever we want in life. Even with I talk with our oldest son who loves soccer, but almost weekly I'll be like, "Dude, if you don't like this, I don't care if you leave. I don't care. This is if you want to do this, I'll drive you all over wherever you want to play, and wherever teams we'll be there. I became the assistant coach through U.S. Soccer now. I'm at his practices, and I love it. And I constantly tell him, if you love this, great, we're here, 100% in. And if you don't, it's okay too. That stuff. You just want them to know that you supported and loved them. That's all. But I do notice, even other artists, when you see other people who have succeeded. I think when you and I were working on films, I was constantly, and I still do tell you, you're an inspiration to me. Or when I see other, people put out their book, I'm going, okay, if they did it, I can do it. And I hope my book does it too. I commented, if I went through med school, anybody can go through med school. So hopefully it inspires a few people who are thinking about it. Go, you know what? Look at it. This is what it is. It's you do the work and you have fun along the way, and you laugh at yourself. And so in that sense, I think we all, in different ways we might never know. The amount of inspirational podcasts I've listened to that, you're having a rough day and all of a sudden you hear somebody like, yeah, you know what, there's a lot of other Italian restaurants out there, but if your favorite Italian restaurant hadn't opened up, because they were worried there's other ones, you wouldn't get to go there. So put your book out there because, there's other books on that subject, but there's not yours. So, you get those little messages all the time from different places. So, we're all just here to help each other.
It is, and sometimes that's the hardest part, though, is the getting started and the believing in yourself enough to show up the second day, the third day.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think just we've talked about it. You know, Stephen Pressfield brings up the big R, resistance, and I think it was Oprah said it best. She said, "Oh, until I actually talked to you, I didn't realize it's like a force of gravity. It's a natural force. Resistance is a true force of nature. You know, you can deny it, but it's there. So as soon as you set out to do, and it's almost funny, as soon as you set out to do something, how many things suddenly the plumbing breaks, suddenly, you know, the kids want to do this. Like you really have to go, no, I am blocking out time. I'm going to do it. And the more you commit, there's going to be other forms of resistance. And there's the biggest of all, certainly that self-critic, internal resistance. Like you just said, sit down every day is, okay, is this worth it? Why am I doing it? You know, and you just, boom, clear the head and see if we all find different tricks, you know, whether it's, okay, I'm going to set the clock and just start. And once I start, then it starts to flow, or some days it doesn't. But that's the thing I found is, okay, it's always there. The resistance is always there. There's always something more interesting to check out on. Let's see what random team is playing cricket over in Bangladesh at 3 in the morning. Not that I'll check soccer scores, but I'm just saying there's always something to click on. There's always another book I'd rather be reading, or gosh, I'm a little hungry. I should go work out now.
Which is the funny thing in some ways, I think. Like if you go for a bike ride, you're not getting to the end of the block going, okay, I think this just isn't working today. But,
exactly.
But on the writing side, that's really easy to
It is really hard.
Yeah,
It's much easier to rewrite once you have words on the page. So I think once you get stuff down, it's so much easier and more fun to work on. But I think that the thing I found is just write. Just start. You know, like even if it just sucks, like you have to sit there and boom, you set a timer. Okay, there you go. Here you are, you're not doing anything else. And even then there's resistance, and even then it's like, but why? And this doesn't work. And I'm like, I don't have the perfect sentence, and I don't know what I'm doing. This is still causing issues, this one. And maybe I should work on that other project. I should go work on that other script or that other page. But no, it's once you start working, that usually busts through it. At least you get something down.
There's that. And then there's probably the other side as well, that there are times that you go back and read something and go, wow, that's actually really good. I didn't remember writing anything that was really good, and that was really good.
That is funny you say that, because I was going to joke and say, no, most of the times they'll go back and go, oh shoot, I thought that was brilliant when I wrote it. It's absolute crap. It's kind of like when you have those brilliant moments at night, right? You write, oh, that's the best thought for a movie night, best line ever, and I write it down, and the next morning you can't read it, or you're like, oh, that's not really good at all. But yeah, a lot of times once you write something down and you do go back, oh, okay, I can work with that. And, I just need to get through it. So.
And do you still handwrite, or do you write on your computer, or how do you do it now?
The book and screenplays are all right on a computer. I do journal freehand, a morning pages type thing. Okay. I'm not as consistent as I should be, but that one I'll do freehand.
So second book, when is the second book coming out?
December 27th it launches.
December 27th, and obviously people
can
pre-order as well.
Yeah, Amazon does this thing where you can pre-order the ebook, but if you put the paper book out, they start selling right away. So that'll come out when it launches.
Okay.
But for the digital copies, we've got pre-orders are already starting. We've already exceeded the pre-orders for the first book, and I haven't even advertised it yet. So.
For the second book?
For the second book, yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so that's fun. And so this marketing woman, Louise Newlands, she's amazing. If anybody needs somebody to do marketing work, she came up with this great trailer idea. So that'll pop and show, and we just got that cut. So that's looking good.
Okay. And is there like a little card or something like that? Like if I buy it for a friend for Christmas, that then I can give them this envelope with a card that says there will be a book that is coming to you.
I think we're going to do something coming up just because it's right before the holidays.
Right.
I think we're going to do something like we'll do like some. I got to figure it out how it works logistically, but we'll do a bunch of like signed books for friends who want to give it out for Christmas, so they can get it beforehand.
Okay.
And get some signed copies ahead of time.
And where can people find this information? Is it on your website? So
it's on Amazon.
Okay.
And then we'll put it on the website, which is johnlawrencewriter.com.
Okay.
I say questionable.
Well, that's what you are on Instagram as well.
Okay, yeah. So that's the same thing. So on Instagram, it's the same as the website. So that's where that is. And then I think May or June we'll get the third one out. Let's give it a few months to just let the second one breathe, and then put the third one out.
Give people a chance to read it.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a lengthy read. They probably want to read it a few times.
Really
pick up the nuances.
All the nuance, yes, exactly. Yeah. And they can go back and read the first one as well. And see where it comes from. The first one's been out for a little while, so they might have forgotten the first one. Catch back up on the first one to then pick up the second one.
Yeah, there's a few references, but yeah, available for book clubs. We can sit down
And that's something that's actually been really successful for you. A
Been
bunch
really
of
fun.
book clubs have read your book and
Yeah.
brought you in.
Good questions. And actually, it was really sweet. One of our mutual friends had us over, and one of the women who was there happened to own a bookstore in town, Dolly's. And so she said, well, let's get the book in there. And they've sold through multiple runs of the book now. So it's great.
Awesome.
Yeah, they're awesome.
That is so cool. And it sounds like it's a lot of fun to be able to share your story. I mean, that's got to be interesting, right? Because it's more personal that way. I mean, you write your book, you put it out there, people read it, but they're not necessarily conversing with you about your book. Whereas at the book club, they are conversing with you about the book and probably finding some depths that you might not have anticipated.
It's funny. Yeah, well, luckily they're mostly friends, so they probably are polite enough not to tell me they don't like it, or they didn't show up to that book club that night. But then it is interesting what they've focused on. It's been really different each time. Some like the chapters that they liked or what they want to ask about are completely different than what I would have expected, and the questions that come up are same thing, different than what I thought they would have focused on. Like the last one, it was great. Got into a really deep dive about medicine and the ethics of medicine and the work schedules of medicine, what's appropriate. So it was really interesting. Some of the things I talked about in book 2 that I kept saying, oh, that's actually what I'm going to talk about in residency. But their minds went right there. They've just picked up on different things that I thought were the main topic. So yeah, it's been really fun for me to actually get different insight.
That is absolutely awesome. So people can go to Amazon. It's called Plain Doctor, and it's the 27th of December that it comes out. You can also pre-order the ebook, or you can go to johnlawrencewriter.com.
Yep, and or if you haven't read book 1, catch you up on wonder how in the world I got to this book first. Yeah.
I think that sounds like a really good idea. And John, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. What a treat.
This is a pleasure. This is awesome to just the journey that you took and the decisions that you made. I think most of us are not courageous enough to be able to follow our heart, to follow our bliss. I mean,
I see. I think I see it all the time. I feel like every day we all face it. So like I said, I'm the one that didn't have the courage to really that big step, but maybe I've learned some along the way. And I feel like we've talked all about me, and usually our conversations are more back and forth. And you're such a good host. Here I am just.
Oh no, this is absolutely spectacular. So we'll get to do that again. Maybe we'll switch the roles the next time.
Yeah. So everybody should know that everything you've heard here, anything that I was inspired by, Chris has been a big inspiration for any of the work they're writing. So
well,
thank you.
It's entirely mutual.
Our friendship's been key to all of this.
My wife and I leave after meeting with John and go, I don't know how John does it.
Which is what I say about them. So it's a mutual. We keep ourselves going.
Exactly. Well, this is wonderful. Thank you to all of you for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed it. The greatest compliment that you can pay us is to tell your friends to like us, to follow us. We'll continue to have great people, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks a lot. Thank you for joining us. Please subscribe to Chris Waddell Living It for more stories on the adaptive community, the Paralympics, artists, athletes, entrepreneurs, experts in the experience of being human. Also follow us on Spotify, Apple, Facebook, and Instagram. I look forward to seeing you next week.